Hey all, I just unlocked my final artifact and played a few games with it. So I just wanted to go through an overview of DRG Survivor's artifacts, which ones I think are pretty handy now that I've unlocked them all and tried them, and which ones I think are pretty bad in my opinion and probably should be changed. So first one looks up on the list is the Squint eye. That is fantastic. 75 crit. It's actually 30% crit chance, 100% critical damage, and you do overall less damage. However, it's just great for doing crits, and most of the time you want to go for crit builds, but for the ones that you're trying to focus on crit, it's a must. Big push. Incredible for it, like the scout who's doing marksman build. The BLT, yeah, it's not. It helps you with some survivability with a little bit of health, but it's not a huge amount. It's okay. That's always been around. 70 max health, 2 health regen. The speed juice box, that's kind of silly. Like, you have to hold still to do it. I don't like getting it. I'm like, unless you're really doing a run and gun, or you have other buffs that help you standing still, there's no reason to get this, because you have to hold still. I think you get a stack every half a second. Maybe it's a third of a second. So it'll take you 2.5 or 2 seconds to get your 5 stacks to get 25% more movement speed for only 3 seconds. So you have to you can keep stutter stepping to get that 25% movement speed. But again, I wouldn't only do it if you have other standstill buffs, such as the fire rate tripod. 75% the ammo rig is 50% fire rate, and you move 15% slower. That's useful for a lot of guns that are doing high fire rate builds, but not useful for drones or for when you shoot everything at once, or you only have one shot, or the shotgun, for example, or things like that when you have a low magazine size, But otherwise, it's really good for high magazine counts. Great. Gold scanner, it's just like a freebie get at the beginning if you're on the beginning stage. I prefer the Nitra scanner. The gold scanners is okay. Gold tip bullets, I don't like picking them. I mean, they're something. They're nice because they're artifacts, and artifacts are calculated on the top level, so they're actually a multiplier of your overall skills. So all the cards that you've been picking, if you didn't know this is how artifact. If you click on a weapon, so when you go is push escape or pause the game, it shows you your weapons, and if you click on it because they have a little plus sign indicating that there's more details. When you click on that, it brings up a new screen and it shows you all the calculations of how they do it. I love that. I'm so happy that they added that since the beta. And so in there you can see that there's a thing called meta, and then there's a thing called artifacts and overclocks. And those are added on top as a final calculation. So just why that's different is if you have 300 reload speed already, and you get it and you find a card that says 10% reload speed, you're going from 300 to 310%. So it's not really 10% more reload speed. It's a cumulative addition to that. However, if you pick an artifact or you pick a overclock that says add 10% more reload speed, in theory, if you haven't done any of the extra artifacts and other things, you are adding 10%. Because you have the 300% from skills cards that you flipped, and then you get 10% in addition to that would actually be 30%, 10% of 300. So you're actually adding 30%, so it'd be 300 to 330. Unlike if you had a card that said add 10%, it would have been 300 to 310. So that's why overclocks and artifacts are a bigger modifier when you're looking and you're like, oh, this ammo rig only gives 75% reload speed or fire rate, which is quite, or 50% fire rate, sorry, which is quite fast. And you might be like, oh, well, I found a legendary card that gives me 50% fire rate. Like, well, technically it's 50% on 100% or however many you had. So this ammo rig is really good at multiplying and modifying your previous skill fire rates. So it's actually better than if you had picked up a card that's 50% because it's enhancing that. Anyway, I should have visualized that instead of just trying to explain it by words, but I'll move on. You could have skipped that. Don't care. The calculation. Nitra Scanner, I think it's great at the beginning levels because Nitra helps you focus in the store about the weapons you prefer, and it builds towards the best. First one, crit chance, crit chance. This is a must, just like this one. It's even better. Just crit chance based on the nitro. Of course, you have to save your nitro, but if you know and you are saving, like 100 nitra gives you 50% crit. That's huge because once you go over 100% crit, you always crit and you have a chance to crit double again. So crit chance getting over 100 is amazing for builds, and I've gotten up to 300% crit on the long hero builds, and on the 10 stage dives, crazy getting 300% crit. Always critting triple, just easy. The belts, they're just a 30-second, I believe, is the cooldown on belts to defend you, and I don't think they block the damage. You get hurt, so you take full damage from the damage, and then they do an effect every 30 seconds cooldown. So I just don't get them. Like, unless there's nothing else good, I really never pick them because I don't plan on getting hit, or when I do get hit, I don't want this effect that maybe I should give Frostbolt or the Frostbelt more of a chance on the final bosses when things get really hard, but maybe I'll like them more in Has 5, but I don't think so. I haven't cared for them in Has 4, but Pickled Nitra, this one I used to really like. Gives you a big massive damage, increases your damage by 2%, and decreases your move speed by 0.5% every nitro. That movement speed gets bad despite the damage, because in the end, you're never going to really one-shot those bosses unless you're playing way too low of a difficulty. So you need to dodge them, and to dodge them, you have to have at least a negative 15% movement speed. Sounds confusing, but what I'm saying is you can't go below negative 15%. In theory, you can't be going below 85% of your base movement speed, because then you can't dodge, get out of the way of their diving attacks. In the least, I would say 80%, but I would say try for 85% of your. So negative 20%, I think you barely, but I would say negative 15% movement speed is the lowest you want to get. So you could add movement speed to that, but you could do it at the end, but you can't combo that with your crit chance because you need to get 100, you want to get 50, 75, 100 nitra to get a whole bunch of crit. And if you have that much nitra, you will be a slug. So slow, or a snail, moving along with that. So Diver's Manual is pretty nice and consistent. I believe it's just an overall great one. 10% damage, 10% reload, 5% crit, 20% crit damage. So it's another great thing to go with crit builds, but it's just good for everybody. Just like no negatives, simple base. It's not super powerful, but it's also not bad. I'll take it. I'll take it over this grease one. This grease one gives you more chance to dodge while moving. So that's not, you're always going to be doing that unless you're mining. So it's better than the hold still ones, and it stacks up to 5 times. So it's 10% dodge. That's not bad, but it does dodge all the damage. So if you could get more dodge build, sure, I would like it, but maybe do it with the recon dodge scout. Tripod, if you hold still, you get to shoot. Your fire rate increases 2%, and your reload increases 2% up to 15 times. That's 30% total. That's nice, but you have to hold still for that. So, do I want to do that? Up to you. It depends on the build. 30% fire rate, 30% reload. You can get that with other artifacts, and you don't have to hold still. So, and it's a ramping. It's not instant. So you'd have to hold still for like 7 seconds to get that. Maybe it's 5 seconds. I'm not sure. Pay to win. I hate it. I don't want to take 50 gold to do double damage. Like, that's nice, but you can't choose when you do pay the gold. and it only lasts 50 seconds. It's hard to get an income of 50 gold during 50 seconds, so I don't like it at all. Maybe you pick it if you have a bank of gold and you're fighting the final boss and you're like, I'll get it. Like, sure. I'm going to kill the boss in 50 seconds. Take 2,000, Reflex Calibrator. This one, increase your dodge while taking chance, while you're taking damage. I don't quite know. I believe it stacks, and it's 2% or something like that. But don't get hit. But I guess it goes with the other dodge. So, Salty Armor, I like that. Salty Pretzel gives you 1 armor for every 2% of your missing health. That works if you got a lot of big health, or you're doing the combo with a mocap here, which is where you're low health, you do more damage. 1% more damage for every 1% missing. So those two go nice together, and if you're just having a real hard time and or you are building lots of armor and you have lots of health, like, sure, Salty Pretzel is fine. Again, it reduces the damage rather than after the damage has been taken. It's not reactive, it's actually preventive. So, Mastery Weapon Box gives you a 5th weapon. Pretty neat, depending on if you want the weapon or not. Of course, that's going to steal more skill cards towards that weapon, so you may not want to split your weapon that much. But if you're lucky and you get one that matches your tags, it might be awesome. This energy bars is a newer one that they added, and that one I think gives you more damage at the cost of your health. How much is it? I think it's 1% damage minus 2 health for every level that you have. I could see it being helpful, like if you get to level 40, it's pretty common. You're aiming for 10 to 15 levels per stage, and eventually kind of caps off at 50s. Then you're looking at 100 minus 100 health. You start 200. That's really not that bad for getting 50% extra damage artifacts. So it's actually pretty good, and it's easy to get. If you get a legendary max health that's plus 50, one card, that would help flip that entirely. So I like it. It's good. The turbo, that is 3% damage and 3% reload, but negative 5% mining speed for every overclock. It's just too small. Like, it's hard to get a lot of overclocks. You'll get like 6, 7, 8, 9. You're talking about 20% damage and 20% reload. Okay, if you have that many overclocks, cool, but that usually means you're not that focused. But you're also losing, you have 6, 7, you're losing 30, 40% mining speed if you have that much. So it's not amazing. I don't know if it should get buffed. Maybe it should be like 4% damage, 4% reload or something per overclock, but it's not terrible. The magnet one I need to get more often. I like it. It's definitely neat to guarantee if you've not been picking them up. Like, I want a magnet. You only get half the value of what's on the map, but when you board your ship, near your ship landing, there'll be a magnet that you can grab. So I think it's great. Obviously, last stages don't get it. Projectile piercing. This one, is it really necessary? 50% additional piercing. Okay. This was the hardest one for me to get. 150,000 projectiles was very hard. I went in a 10-stage thing, committed to get just this projectiles by getting every fire rate and every big gun that I could get. And I got it done, finally. But as for the artifact, I don't care for it. Obviously, only if you're doing weapons that have piercing, but usually it's not hard to get that big piercing amount. I guess that if you do get it, it allows you to ignore piercing cards because you have that already. 50%. Chemistry kit, 15% potency, 15% status effect damage. That seems neat. I haven't felt like status effects have been that great. I thought they were pretty cool in the beta, but they don't feel that good now. But I haven't done enough runs with it, honestly. Multi-tool? This I didn't think would be good because it means you have to have a split thing. How it functions is you get a flat negative 25% reload speed, but then you get 5% reload speed for every unique tag. And tags can add up, but that means you have to have at least 6 tags to do 5% minimum. You don't want that for an artifact. You want to have at least a point like 30% reload speed, right? So in that case, you need 5 plus 6. That's 11 tags, which is kind of a lot, but it's potentially easy. There are a lot of tags. Weapons will have something like kinetic, burst, or kinetic, spray, and medium, or something like that. And so you have 3 tags. Some things have 4 tags if they have an element in addition, or just things like that. So but tags are good to go for in matching tags because then you can get different skills that help those tags. But if for some reason you're getting lots of different tags, I was doing drones and I was doing construction or construct, and I had an explosion, and then in addition I got the weapon box. So then that gave me another random weapon with beams, and I was like, yeah, I don't care about that. But then I realized, ooh, I saw a multi-tool, and I was like, actually, I have 19 or 20 tags. Okay, I'll get it. And that actually did help me because I just had weird weapons. So if you have weird weapons, it could be nice, but it's not fantastic. This thing, I hate this thing. Reach level 50 in diving. It says it gives you 3 levels. So if you find it in a drop pod resupply, just if you're over level 50, I guess you're like their levels are coming slowly. Okay, I have really good luck, so I can get good skill cards. Okay, then I guess it's worth it. You have lots of gold to spend to re-rolls. Okay, but otherwise, anything before the last stage feels like a waste because levels come so easily, and I don't want to spend an artifact on that. Now, what they should do, if they said this gives you 20% XP, obviously then it'd be really good at the beginning stages, and I would pick it. If it was 20%, 30% extra XP, yeah, I would get it. But the fact that it's 3 flat levels immediately feels dumb. DRG coupons, great early on. I love it. 20%, I think it's 20% discount to all shop purchases except for healing. They should make the healing one included in there, the med packs. But everything else is discounted. You get this on the first stage, I would say take it. It's awesome to get that discount. I can really feel the discounts. So yeah, that's all of them. That's all the different artifacts that you can unlock. And I think I explained all the details of each one, what they do. I wish you could click on them and they would show you, because once you've earned them, you should be able to see what they are. So they need to add that in the game. Same as this one, when you look at class mods. Of course, you could just look at the class mods here, but they should tell you what each of those artifacts does. I'll do another video on weapons when I actually have thought about the lower weapons. I already have my favorite weapons, so I could just talk about what I think is kind of S tier and A tier, but I should experiment a little bit more with the status effects of damage, and then figure out which ones I think are really bad to avoid weapons. But yeah, I really liked. I played this game in the beta or alpha, whatever it was called. Now it's early access, I think. I've been a fan. I think it has added a lot of things to Survivor games that I enjoy. The card choices, upgrades to weapons that are not just flat upgrade to weapons like in Vampire Survivor, but you actually choose like which parts of it, reload, fire rate, damage, magazine size. Those are all pretty neat that you get to choose. Artifacts I like the mining aspect, the building tunnels and choke points. I like the lore of DRG because I love the DRG game, so I was already a fan to it. I really like what they did with the Survivor thing. And the new mastery things that they just added as of like 3 weeks ago. They're fun. They're fun to go with and do. So the bonus is pretty small. Like, but I understand why they're small. They're also top level. So this increases, I believe, the meta portion in the formula. So it's a after skill multiplier. So it actually can affect you. It's not just 7% damage Like you find a card that says increase damage by 15%, 20%, you're like, oh, 7% damage is terrible. I can one basic white card would do better than that. And so I thought that it's actually a multiplier. So when you have 200% extra damage, it's 7% of 200%, not just 207%. It's actually, well, in that case, it would be what, 14%? Well, it's 200% plus of what you have, so it's not huge. But I mean, the explosion radius is big. That's kind of more rare to find. But a lot of these, like you do the hazard 5, you 15%. 15% damage. That's terrible. It's like, well, it's a multiplier, so it's on that end of the formula. So what I would like to see them do is add, like I said, I really liked that they added the end game, because I said, please have the end game score show your upgrades, because it says level 22. And you're like, okay, this is level 22, and this is level 12 or 17, and their DPS is somewhat close. Why is that? You know, it'd be neat to click on the 25 and say, oh, these are a lot of white, green, blue picks, and on the level 12, I had all my luck, and I have reds. And now I know because I picked reds for this weapon all along, and I click on it, and they added that. So I was very, very happy that they added that. And they also added the formula calculations. That was awesome to click on and see more details on each weapon. So I like what they did with it. I don't know how much more they can do with this. How much more I'm interested to see what they will do. More mission types. I know co-op's not. Co-op is what Ghost Ship Games DRG is all about. This is made by Fun Games. Gosh, I can't remember what this is made by. But they said it's not Fun Day Games. It's not in their. It's not on their roadmap. They do not expect to make this co-op. I would be really vexed into how you would actually do a co-op, because if you just put two people on the same screen, I mean, we would try that first as co-op, I think, and see how easy it is, how different, if you can actually scale it correctly, because I think that would swing out of balance so easily. If you had two people running together on the same map, free range, either if you make them locked in the same screen or separate screens. If you make them separate screens, like the aggro, you have to take an effect, and that's double the damage if you double the enemies, but I think you would just be so easily swarmed or so easily killing them all. It'd be really hard to find the sweet spot in balance. The other methods I imagine in this game is you have two people in their own maps, kind of like people like to do lane games where one person's on one side defending it, and depending on how good they do, they can help their teammate on the other side by eliminating bugs or scare, like you fail, you're getting overrun on your map, so then those bugs go to the other ally and they have to take on that burden, or they're doing so well they finish their map and they can join your map, or something along the lines of how you can split them and yet make them feel as a team in the score, that they can carry each other. That's another method of co-op. Another method of co-op would be, which I don't like, is entirely making a different gameplay, where one person's doing the surviving and one person's doing another aspect, but I think that would be creating a whole nother function of the game, and that just would be a lot more thought out. Or a lot more would have to be put into that to make that work. So I would like to see co-op, but I understand already. I'm trying to comprehend how I would imagine a co-op, and it would be difficult to implement. I mean, of course, just try it. Just try putting two dwarves, and already the way that it works on Has 5 or whatever, scale it to the amount of bugs, the amount of players, and see if it works. I imagine it wouldn't be so bad, but like I said, it would be the balancing that would be very difficult. But that's all. That's my checkup on the game of what I like so far in July of 2024. The state of the game.